How do you best approach bulk food storage for your own family? Hi, welcome back to Ridgehaven Homestead. You have caught us in the thick of things. We've had a busy day going here and there and doing lots of errands. One of the things that we did today was stock up a little bit more on some of our bulk things that had been depleted. And so I thought it's as good a time as any to talk bulk foods, buying in bulk, storing it, and what do you do with this? How do you best approach bulk food storage for your own family? As you can see, I have piles of things, and these things are going into these jars. These jars are going on a shelf behind me, and that is a large part of our bulk storage that we use on a day-to-day basis. We do some prepping to put away things for later on, and I'll discuss that. But a lot of this bulk stuff that we buy is just for eating, day-to-day stuff that we use, and we try to buy in bulk because of frugality, because eating simply is very healthful, and it's just easy to know what to prepare if you base your diet around beans and rice, which we do. I cook vegan and always have, plant-based, whatever you want to call it. And over time, I've just come to believe that that's a really solid way to get basic nutrition for a low price, and that's kind of what we're after. So let's talk about some principles of buying in bulk. What kind of things do you buy? Now that's going to depend on your diet, on your preferences, and of course all that, but I like to think that there's some wise things that we can do to keep in mind when we buy in bulk. I think the first thing we have to consider is our budget. What can we afford? We have always lived on a pretty simple meal plan based around beans and more beans. And you know, if you're vegetarian, that is just the way of life, and you get used to it. And actually, it's very easy to base a diet around beans. That's not everything we buy, but it certainly has a big component. And like I said, a large reason is because of the money. We don't have a huge food budget. We don't have a huge budget at all. We want to think of economics, but then we want to think of what are we going to be able to store long term and what's going to last. You don't want to just buy a bunch of ready-made products that aren't going to last you, because that's wasting money. Dry ingredients that store a long time for us include beans, and there's lots of kinds of beans to consider. Right now I've got a 4-pound bag of lentils and I'm putting in a jar, and we all like lentils. Even my most picky youngest son, who doesn't like every kind of bean, he likes the lentils. So that's one we can all agree on. And it looks like I've overflowed my jar, so I'm probably about to make a mess. I'm one of these people who can't do two things at once, so let's see what we can do. I'm going to scoop it out and put it in here. The things that will last a long time to keep in your pantry are all the kinds of beans that you and your family are going to eat. Obviously, if you hate kidney beans, don't buy them. You're not going to eat them under a new circumstance. Just buy the ones you're going to eat. And so our favorites are pinto beans, lentils, black beans. I like split peas. I think our boys don't like them so much. My husband likes black-eyed peas, and I, within reason, like the white beans, but not everybody likes those. And my favorites are actually garbanzos, but we have some arguments over lots of the different kinds of beans, because different people have different preferences. So the ones that I try to stock the most of are the ones that everybody likes. So that is the pintos, the lentils, the black beans, and well, that's probably about all that we all like. I like to think of cheap and hearty, and I'm not just talking about cheap as far as no nutritional value, because I don't think you're saving yourself anything when you buy a bunch of stuff that costs not very much but doesn't give you very much nutrition. So sure, we could live on what's something cheap. We could live on cheap macaroni all the time, but that's not going to give us as much nutrition as something that is a whole food product. So cheap is, you know, if you compare the cost of eating steak or hamburger to the protein in beans, you're going to find that beans, ounce for ounce, pound for pound, are going to go farther as far as economically. Now, one thing that you have to keep in mind for your beans is it's a good thing to pair them with another whole grain, like a rice or a quinoa or something like that, so that you can get a complete protein. And thankfully, you don't even have to do that in one meal. You can do it across the day, and your body is so smart that it can take those proteins and put them together and make a complete protein. So there's really no harm in eating a vegetarian diet. You just have to combine things properly. Okay, we bought 3 of these 4-pound bags of lentils, and these are just from Walmart. If I had my preferences, I probably would buy organic ones, at least non-GMO, but they didn't have those, and I was just trying to stock our pantry so that we have the things to make a variety. We also bought pinto beans. Okay, we bought a 20-pound bag of pinto beans, and these are a little under $1 a pound. I think the lentils are running a little bit over $1 a pound, but you only need a couple of cups of lentils to make a pretty decent pot of stew, especially if you add other things like vegetables to it. And then the pinto beans go far as well. So, okay, so pinto beans we all like. I didn't realize it was already open. I need to get a scoop for this. Let's talk about some more of the principles. So cheap and hearty, and then the next thing I want to talk about is something that we can live on with minimal preparation. When we think of putting food in our pantry, and especially things for longer term, we want to think about things that are going to be easy to prepare. The cats are coming around. They think this is cat food for them. We like to have the bulk of our food, the beans and the rice, and often potatoes. Those are things we like to bulk buy, but obviously we don't put the potatoes in the jars. We just keep them in a cool place. If you have a root cellar, that's the best. Then to round it out, because you need more nutrition than that, the best thing to do is to plant a garden. And if you're able to, put a greenhouse up, even if it's just a small one, even if it's just rows with hoops of PVC pipe, and then cover it with plastic so that you have an extended growing season, or grow something in your window. But round out your diet by things that you can produce fresh on your homestead. And so that's where a garden comes in, and we've been really blessed to have things like lettuce coming out of the greenhouse that was completely, we didn't prepare for that. In other words, it grew from last year, and we're harvesting it, and it's almost done. So now there's a little window of waiting until our other garden stuff comes in. So when I think of minimal preparation, beans again come to mind. And sometimes we think, well, minimal preparation, beans take a long time to cook, and that's true. That uses your fuel. But there's 2 of my favorite ways to prepare beans, and they're both very, very easy. One is in the crock pot, and if you have electricity, A crock pot doesn't have a huge draw, and we've checked it out on our solar system, and it doesn't do a huge draw as long as you have a pretty energy efficient one. And I'm talking about a newer one, but it doesn't drain a lot, and you can put that in there, and overnight it's just like you don't even have to do anything with it. Just cooks and cooks, and it's so good. That's my favorite way because they taste the best. And then the next favorite way is just to have a small pressure cooker like this. I don't remember if this is 8 quarts, 6 quarts. I think it's 6 quarts. But this is a pressure cooker, not a canner. Has a little rocker that goes on top, and you can put your beans in there. It's better if you soak them, but you don't have to, and I rarely do. And you can cook pinto beans in 45 minutes and they're done. And so if you have either a gas stove or an electric stove or any kind of heat source, then you can cook your beans in a flash. And I learned that little trick from the pressure cooker when I was in Brazil, because everybody in the Amazon had one of those. They could have been dirt poor, had a 1 or 2 burner stove, but they always had a pressure cooker like this. Now ours is stainless steel. I bought it purposefully like that because I don't like the aluminum leaching into my food. But these are about $60, and you can get them on Amazon usually, and they last a long time. Sometimes you might have to replace the seal, but it's a pretty good investment for if you're going to be cooking a lot of beans. Of course, you can cook other things in there. Potatoes cook in 8 minutes. It's just like your fast way to cook that's low tech. No, you don't even have to have electricity. You can use it on your gas stove. So I recommend that for sure. The next principle is, minimal preparation. I like to think of what you can do if you don't have much, and like if your power goes out, what are you going to cook? Well, I'm going to use my pressure cooker if I can. We're going to use it on the wood stove. We're going to use it on the propane stove if we have propane. I purposefully bought a very old propane stove from the 1950s so that we didn't have any electric components on it, so we were not relying on the grid whatsoever. So if our solar system goes down, we still have a backup. Now, one day our propane will run out, and that's okay. We have a wood stove, and we have lots of trees on our property, and as long as we're able to, we'll use wood heat. And that brings me another principle. You can use cast iron. You can use that on your gas stove, on your electric stove, on your wood cook stove, if you have one, which we don't. We have a wood heating stove. And you can also build a fire outside and use your cast iron on that. Many, many times we've made a meal entirely in our Dutch oven, which is just a cast iron pot that is a little bit deeper, has feet so that it gets up out of the coals, has a lid that goes tight, and then it has a handle. You get your coals going. You make sure that it's a good fire so it's not going to burn it. So make sure you have a good bed of coals. Put your Dutch oven in there. You can cook beans. I mean, like the pioneers used to do that, but I've never cooked beans from start to finish in my Dutch oven. I don't have that much patience, but I would in a pinch. We've cooked potatoes and carrots and stew. We've cooked pasta, beanie weenies, just whatever in the fire, and it tastes so good. It's a great experience. So I definitely recommend a cast iron Dutch oven, a pressure cooker, and then all the other cast iron implements. You can use your cast iron skillet in the wood, in the campfire if you have a little built up place where it can cook. So there's lots of different ways. If you think outside the box, we don't have to rely 100% on electricity. Now that was a whole different set of topics, like how do you cook off-grid, but it's kind of related to this because I think of preparation and what are you going to do if you're in a pinch. So minimal preparation. When you think about buying in bulk, look for the sales. And unfortunately, I say that, but unfortunately, I've never actually seen lentils really on sale. You rarely see bulk food on sale. You just have to watch, and maybe someday it will be on sale. You can always hope. But I will say something, and we've been trying to teach our boys to be observant about these things, and I'm trying to remind myself, when you go to the store, pay attention. Because sometimes you get a 1 pound bag of beans or a 2 pound, and then you look at the like 10 pound or 20 pound. Always look at the price per ounce, because sometimes the biggest bag is not the cheapest. And I was shocked to see that with several things here recently. I think it was some beans, and there was something else that I bought. It was chocolate chips that I bought if I was making my guys some cookies. The biggest bag was not the most economical. The second to the biggest bag was the lowest per ounce. So don't always assume the big bag is what you want to get. Sometimes that's easier, but go for value rather than just big. And yeah, be a frugal shopper. One tip that they say is to, if you want to shop economically, is to scan the bottom of the aisles in the store. And if you think about it, that makes sense. All the bulk stuff that we got today was on the bottom shelf. Honestly, every single one of these things, except for the sugar. Sugar was not on the bottom shelf. But other than that, it was. At the eye level is where you're gonna have your prepackaged, more expensive stuff. They do that for a reason. They want you to buy it. So just be old-fashioned. Buy the stuff that's basic. A few people have asked me on my video where I did it about the wall behind me. If you haven't seen that, check it out, about our mason jar wall. It's one of my favorite features of our homestead cabin so far. People really like that video, so yeah, check it out. Some people asked me on there and then subsequently, do I vacuum seal my jars? And as of right now, the answer is no, because I don't have a vacuum sealer, but Facebook is so handy. Ever since then, they've been sending me recommendations that I get a vacuum sealer, like ad after ad after ad. I wonder how they knew. I don't know. Crazy thing, isn't it? But I will say that those ads worked. I haven't ordered one yet, but I've seen several, and they look pretty awesome. I don't think they're electric. They're just a thing that goes on top of your jar. It can be a regular or a wide mouth mason jar. It goes on there, you push a button, it seals all the air out of your jars so that it can last for a long time. And it showed things like, you know, they were putting potato chips in jars, and I'm thinking, boy, oh boy, that'd be a lot of jars to put potato chips in to seal them. But the good thing is you can use your lids over and over as long as you don't nick them. And I am looking into that. I'm actually thinking that that's a pretty good idea, because some of the things we do in bulk are going to be a little bit longer term storage. Some things we do in bulk and they're just going to be like eaten pretty soon. I'm not too worried about those. But even so, it didn't take 10 seconds to put it on there and suck the air out. So for like nuts that are sitting around, as long as they're not getting exposed to the air, they're going to last a lot longer. So I'm definitely going to check out and getting one, and when I do, I'll let you know, and I'll let you know what I think about it, because I think it's a pretty good idea. So thank you to the watchers who asked me about that, because it put a thought in my head. Okay, let's talk the rest of the principles of buying in bulk. Watch the sales, get the things that are your favorites. Sometimes I recommend getting like flour so you can make things out of those ingredients. Flour, sugar, salt. It's probably wise to buy salt in bulk if you're going to buy a lot of beans and rice, because beans without salt are kind of disgusting. I don't recommend it. So yeah, buy salt, it'll go a long way. And let me finish going over these principles. Okay, for cooking, you want salt, you want some sugar, And you will want some oils, but I really want to recommend that you be careful with your oils. We've been burned too many times where we've bought too much olive oil or something, and we haven't been able to use it before it goes rancid, and that's just not a good, that's wasting a lot of money. So definitely buy it as you need it, a little bit ahead maybe, but store it in a cool place so that it doesn't go rancid and you don't waste your money. Popcorn we buy, if you see behind me, I don't know if you can see these jars. We keep several, actually we buy popcorn by the 50-pound bag because we grind our popcorn into cornmeal. It works really well with our Nutrimil grinder. And well, I like to eat popcorn, but we don't eat this much popcorn. But grinding it really gives us lots of options. It gives us like grits, so we can make cereal out of it, the cornbread, whatever we would make with cornmeal, we make it from our cornmeal that we grind from the popcorn. Today I bought some sugar, and I am picky about my sugar because most sugar is from sugar beets, and most sugar beets are genetically modified, and so we specifically buy sugar that either says non-GMO or that says it's made from cane sugar, like sugar cane. And so I look for the non-GMO on it. We just try to avoid GMOs when feasible. And I've noticed that many times they are labeling sugar now with the non-GMO label, so it's not as hard to find as it used to be. They've realized that people, they don't want the GMOs. So what you buy will reflect on the demand, and whoops, and maybe they'll start listening to us. I think I overfilled that. See if I can put this lid on. Nope. Okay, let's go in another jar. Unfortunately, I don't have enough jars for all the stuff that I bought. And I will say that I did check out the jars. A couple people have recommended that I check out the jars on Azure Standard because they are cheaper. And so I went on Azure Standard today and I checked the prices out. And currently at Walmart, which they're kind of expensive, 6 of these half-gallon jars are $16.44 at our local Walmart. Okay, so then on Azure Standard, they were 13 something, but then I noticed that they didn't have lids and bands. And so I was like, well, $3. I think I'll just stick with the ones that have lids because I usually need a lid on mine. So I don't know, I didn't find that was the cheapest thing. If you already have the lids, go for it. I do definitely recommend that you check prices everywhere. And I could have missed some on there. I just did a quick search, and I've never ordered from Azure Standard, but a lot of people have been telling me to check it out, and so I'm going to check more deeply into it because our co-op of food that used to be pretty cheap has been creeping up there like everything else, and sometimes it's discouraging to see how the price of things goes up so fast. Okay, so sugar is a good thing to keep on hand. You don't have to eat a lot of sugar. In fact, in the olden days, they didn't hardly eat any sugar at all. It was such a rare thing. We have become more dependent on sugar. And I buy it because our guys like to put it on their oatmeal, and I like to make cookies sometimes. And I depleted our supply, so I have to buy more. Okay, let me look at what I have. I planned to make cornmeal, and I planned to have at least 4 jars of cornmeal once I ground it. And here I have bought all this stuff, and I don't have any. I have 2 jars left, and I'm going to use these jars for rice. I could have sworn I bought basmati rice, but it turns out I bought jasmine rice. So usually I will buy long grain brown rice, and they did not have big bags today, so I went ahead and got the jasmine rice. and we just use this more sparingly because it's more refined. And yeah, I generally try to buy things that are not refined. But today I bought this 20 pounds. The price was pretty decent. Yeah, it was non-GMO, so at least there's that. We don't eat a lot of rice. We just kind of have it sometimes. So it looks like I'm gonna need to get more jars, and the rest of this stuff's gonna have to wait on the shelf until I get the jars to store it. Adam went today and he very helpfully arranged my jars behind me so that all the beans are together, the dried fruits together, and it seems easier to find things. And I was really glad that he did that because it's been all over the place, everything just mixed up, just shoved on the shelf, and so that helped a lot. Has anything come to your mind as I've been jarring up these things? Anything that has made you think, wow, I should really do that, or I would never do that? I'd like you to leave it in the comments, any thoughts that you have, because a lot of times we get stuck in a rut. I'm just making a mess here. We get stuck in a rut. You know, we buy the things we buy and we don't think about other things. So let me know the things you guys buy in bulk. And I am going to continue scooping this rice back into the bag. Just before we go, it's that time of day when the sun is coming directly into my window, and it's directly into my face, so you can probably see my face really well, but I can't see you at all. You can look behind me and see what we have. We've got a lot of white beans, and fortunately, those are not going to be eaten all that soon. The split peas, we have a few black beans back there. It looks like I have a few jars I can combine. So let me do that, and then I can store more. Oh, and don't be afraid to combine your beans into a bean soup. That's just what they do in the bags when you buy them at the store for like 3 times the price of a regular bag of beans. Take your favorites and make your own favorite soup blend. You'll save money. Wow, that was a process. I did not set out to organize the jars. Adam had already done that this morning, but since I filled so many of them, I had to go ahead and get them a little bit more categorized. And so I really am happy with the way that the shelf looks. All the jars are filled up mostly. There's a couple that I don't have ingredients to finish filling them up, but largely they're filled. I have some spaces where I need to get new big jars, but yeah, it's a good feeling. And I see now where I need to work on replacing small with big, but we have gotten somewhere today. We got most of our stuff put away. I got everything in jars except for all these pinto beans. I probably have half of them to still put away, but they'll be okay. I'll put them in the pantry and they'll just wait. So yeah, pretty impressive with managing to consolidate what we had and find spaces, and I was able to put away a lot more than I thought I would have room for. So thanks for watching this video. I would like to know your thoughts on bulk buying. What do you buy in bulk? I'm sure I've knocked it out of the park as far as not in a good way. I'm sure that I've completely missed some areas that I probably didn't even think about. So let me know what they are. And thanks for watching. Please subscribe so you can get more videos like this. And thanks for coming along.